Good morning.
Hey, hey,
This
Happy
is
Monday.
Jamie's favorite episode of the quarter. So we'll get into it in a minute. But Brandy, you're still up at the cabin.
I am, and I have yet again a different background because my neighbors are removing a whole bunch of trees that are going into their septic system. So it is extremely loud, and I'm in the furthest place possible. So if you hear any chainsaws, I am going to try to panic mute whenever I'm not talking. But that's, you got to be adaptable. So I'm just touring around the house.
Beautiful. Jamie, good weekend?
Oh, yeah. I had the kids. Wife comes back today after being gone for 5 days. Thank Lord. But it was good. The news from the weekend was made it to the finals in our dart league. And then we lost. We got crushed in the last game, which was so sad.
All right, Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
I know. I was like, got to store this information for later.
Don't play Jamie in darts. Got it. Same old around here. Went to play in the creek, and Oliver's catching little fish with his little hand net, which is impressive. But it's super hot, and I'm ready for summer to be over.
It's funny. It's like really cooled off up here. I'm like in a sweatshirt and jeans right now. So, and apparently it's like sweltering in Boston. So I'm not totally looking forward to going back to that.
It does not feel good. Does not feel good.
Definitely feels like a swamp down here in Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, before we dive in, I want to give a shout out to the team at Moving Mountains. I had another work trip to Steamboat Springs last week, just ping-ponging all over the country this summer. And it was just great to see that team. I'm always so impressed. The homes are just insane, and they take such good care of them. So it's definitely a really fantastic example of luxury in our space. And I looked up the house that we were staying in. I looked up what it would cost me to go the week we like to go out west. And it was like $22,000. And I'm like, maybe not.
But how lucky are you that you're in an industry that you can go and stay in that place and not have to pay for it?
Yeah. I mean, pretty awesome.
Even if it's not peak, that's all right.
Yes, exactly. Well, before we jump into all of our juicy earnings call recaps today, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors at StayFi. StayFi helps short-term rental operators build direct guest relationships through branded Wi-Fi portals, email marketing, and guest data tools that turn one-time bookers into repeat guests. So start growing your direct booking revenue today at stayfi.com/goodmorninghospitality. So first up on the earnings call, drum roll, is Airbnb. So since this is Jamie's, I don't know, Christmas, do you want to tell us what your thoughts are on their earnings call?
Give us stock advice. Are you buying, selling? Just kidding. Do not.
As a disclaimer, this is not a show that gives financial advice.
Yeah. And maybe, Jill, Will, if you could bring up the chart that I shared, because it's really instructive for both what happened on Airbnb, but also, and we're going to get into Booking and Expedia as well. But Airbnb accelerating nights growth to 10% in the second quarter was big. They had guided that it was going to be down from last quarter. There was a lot of worry in terms of summer bookings. Were they going to show up? And could they really accelerate the business when really everyone was guiding the second quarter to deceleration? So where Booking and Expedia came in at, like decelerating, was sort of everyone's expectation. So the big surprise here was that Airbnb was able to re-accelerate growth in a period of deacceleration. And I know you guys didn't listen to the earnings calls.
I read it. I still get partial credit.
I re-listened to it again this morning. It was so good in terms of the topics, but it felt like listening to it, and also in contrast to the Expedia and Booking ones, that a lot of different things are hitting at the same time. So on the hotel side, and it was funny, I think, to hear Brian talk about how and hotels is easy. Like, and we built a whole platform, like essentially creating a category, matching supply and demand. And now they just like it says, we think they have the best booking hotel booking product online, and people just sign up and bring on their inventory. It's amazing. We already have all this traffic. So that was an interesting one. And I'll just run through some of the interesting things, and maybe we can pick ones that you guys want to chat about. The single service fee coming in September, I think, is going to be a big deal for hosts. We're probably not talking about it enough in terms of just industry. I mean, all the property managers, API connected hosts already moved, but it's going to be millions of hosts sort of having their service fee changed. And so they talked a little bit about that. One that was, I think, really interesting for us to talk about was the 3 phases of travel and where they think they are. So Brian called out that, and they still think right now they're in the first phase, sort of attaching incremental types of travel to their home booking. So they launched services, experiences. They're going to be rolling out car rentals, things like that. So that's like the connected trip. Booking's been working on it for 10 years. Brian's like, we're going to roll it out in a year. It's going to be great. It's going to work. So I'm really interested to see that and phase 2 that they're going to probably roll out next year is full service booking site. So one-stop shop for travel. And that's what a lot of the AI companies, Layla, we talked about last week, Odessia, and rolled out a few months ago. So can they compete in that space? They own a lot of the travel inventory. They're putting together all the booking providers. So they could be a powerhouse there, and then moving from traveling to living, maybe pie in the sky, what could be, but interested that they're still talking about that. And then the final one I'll mention is AI pricing. So Brian called it out. One of the biggest single levers that they could pull, many times larger than Reserve Now Pay Layer in terms of incremental growth, that they are going to relaunch their pricing models for hosts to help them price their listings better, and bring in real-time hotel prices, event calendars, lead times. That is expressly prescient for us because we are just launching our AI pricing tool at AirDNA. So
let's get a test side by side. Who prices better?
Yeah, nothing like having one of the biggest companies in the world try to launch a product competing against you. But Airbnb is a great partner with them. And what I would say is Airbnb, just let us price it for you guys. Like, push hosts to us. We'd be happy to help increase the revenue of all your hosts with our tools.
White label it, get a few bips of each transaction. Easy.
Yeah.
Well, I think that all those are some great topics for us to chew on, but I think the pricing is one that it will impact hosts of all sizes. And, you always have to think about who is this pricing who is it getting better for? And obviously they don't want hosts to be so discouraged with their revenue that they stop hosting on Airbnb, obviously, but I think this is still a very good reason why you should have your revenue management team, or if you're a smaller host that has a couple of homes, don't just trust whatever Airbnb is going to tell you, because the incentives are not aligned. And I think with this even more though, what makes me nervous to see in the future is how is the algorithm going to favor, are properties that are using their AI pricing going to be put forward on page 1, even if the pricing might not necessarily be the best, but are they hey, because you're the reward function is going to be there for using their whole suite of products. Yeah. And maybe that won't happen, but I could easily see that happening, Yeah. And so, yeah. Go ahead.
The thing for me is that Brian talks about AI a lot and how it's accelerated their product growth and release. And for what feels like 2 years since they bought the AI company for $200 million, it's been very little discussion of what AI is actually doing for them. And it seems like it's now starting to kick in and help catch up. And we saw this happen with Vrbo and Expedia. Vrbo hit a little bit of a slump for a little while and then became fully integrated with Expedia, and their numbers have been climbing since. So it's impressive to see how much has been released this quarter. Brian called it out specifically, that it helped them reduce time from concept to delivery by as much as 60% on key initiatives. The other piece that jumped out to me, and we've kind of ragged on it a little bit, is how they're leveraging their brand and becoming an actual true OTA. So it's good to see them say outright, Brian said, Airbnb's focus over the next year and a half on becoming a one-stop shop for travel. And that's as clear as day that now they're officially an OTA. Jamie, do you agree that it's good to hear them say the words out loud?
Yeah, I told you I was at the product release in May, right? Like it was clear there that they're an OTA. Like they launched car rentals, that they are pushing into all the other things that the other OTAs launched. Like and they didn't say it, but you could feel that. Hotel and they did talk a lot about hotels. Airlines are coming. Like that this is a move that they're pushing. Like they can't just be homes, and there's just not enough growth there for them, that they've got to continue to push into the entire sort of travel ecosystem. So, yes, it's good to hear them say it, but they've been showing it with their actions for much longer, that this is a area that they're going to be pushing into. The one last number, I'll give you one more number because I spent a lot of time digging into it last week, is just like what the AI pricing or what dynamic pricing just means for an average host. Because like most hosts don't use dynamic pricing. Like 25% of listings still have a flat rate out there. Like the lack of pricing sophistication out there in the industry is still mind-boggling to me. And like looking and controlling for all the different things, like using dynamic pricing versus not, it's like 20% more revenue throughout the year. Like it is meaningful. And most of it isn't from higher prices. It's from more bookings, from lowering your rates during off season and pushing them, changing them based on how lead times and pacing is playing out. So I do think there's a lot of juice there for them if they can convince hosts to do it. I think there is a lot of question of like, if people haven't done it now, what can Airbnb do to push them to actually make that change to be more dynamic in how they're going to price?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of circle back to the connected trip portion quickly, because this has been hanging over the OTAs for a while, and I actually think personally that if any of them, like, who would I want to book my trip through? Probably be Airbnb, just because of like their user interface and the experience in the app. But then I think this also connects back to our other big favorite topic of like points and loyalty. Like, how are you going to, a lot of people are booking their flights and hotels based off of their credit card points or their airline miles or a combination of two. So like I think that's a huge hurdle to anyone doing connected trip. Like, I think you have to integrate those somehow for it to be successful.
Yeah, and that's where booking through a ChatGPT could actually have all your logins connected and be able to transact. But then you give up the control of the supply that the OTAs has. So it's that one's a tough one to navigate. Jamie, I got a question for you that I don't have, but Paul Manzi has. I'm going to read this aloud to you. Airbnb has developed trust with the traveler. There's a gap there between PMs and hosts. Does dynamic pricing cause more distrust or close the gap?
Yeah. One, I think dynamic pricing is getting more like accepted in modern day in society, that and you know that, and if you're going to a concert, you're going to pay more for an Uber when you leave than if you're going to an airport at 8 a.m., right? That there's this concept of supply and demand, and price is sort of a moderator there. You're going to pay more in the summer, you're going to pay less in the off season. And it pushes, I think, to actually help drive the trust of like, hey, like host, like you are overpriced in the shoulder season, like, and guests are willing to book at this lower price if you're willing to meet them at what they're willing to pay during that period. And I think if it's done in the right way, and I do think their move to all-in pricing has actually helped a lot with the consumer of like not nickel and diming you on like, oh, you got the service fee, the cleaning fee, like all these things in your folio of like, here's the price. Are you willing to pay it or not? I think ultimately does help build trust with consumers.
You know, it's not just the like small individual hosts that are kind of lagging behind in the dynamic pricing, specifically on Airbnb. I know there are some other operators that view Airbnb as like, oh, I'm just going to try to use this in my shoulder season and my off season, like turn it on then. And it's like, that doesn't work. Like, that's not how the algorithm is going to favor you, or setting prices really, really high on Airbnb because they don't want the guests or they don't trust the guests or whatever, speaking of that trust component. But then they also like, and we don't even get a lot of revenue from them. They're like, that's because you're not playing within the system. And so it's not just, you know, there might be some poo-pooing from the professionals towards individual hosts, but there are some larger PMs that still don't, it comes back to this trust component, that don't trust Airbnb, but then it's like a flywheel effect, and they aren't doing what they need to do to be successful on there, and then they're not successful, and then they don't like it, and it just kind of continues.
Well, we'll see what pricing does. Jamie, I want to see an A/B test with your product versus theirs. Can you commit to doing that on the show?
100%. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, moving on to the next OTA. Expedia is talking more and more about their B2B product, which we've talked about a lot on the show. And they want it to be a one-stop shop. Historically, it's been very heavily hotel focused, but they're pushing into more verticals. Good strategy, bad strategy. Jamie, thoughts?
It's clearly been the growth driver for them. Like if you think about Expedia, 20th consecutive double-digit growth quarter for their B2B business, 70,000 plus partners. Like they're aggregating all this inventory, and then these partners are going to come connect to it and then go out and sell it for them, where they're just sort of this middle layer. It did come up multiple times on the Expedia call of like how the B2B business is getting more competitive, and bookings obviously pushing in there and wanting to compete with them for that space. They have the connected trip. They have all the other pieces of the travel pie too. So I do think it's going to be competitive. It's not going to be for Expedia just to run with it, but they are clearly like winning on the B2B side. And their list of partners that they talk about are incredible. And then that they're willing and able to go out and acquire, whether it's car trawler to make sure they have the best car rental inventory, or like a Layla where it's like, hey, this is a new B2B or partner that we can own, test with, and see like, okay, how is AI going to change third party sort of booking platforms and get all those learnings internally, I think is huge for them. I think the question though is if you look at their consumer brands versus the B2B brands, like, can they continue to grow their consumer brands Expedia, hotels.com, Vrbo? I did get excited. They talked a lot about Vrbo on the call, and they're doing their tests on sort of paid search for Vrbo. I think that's going to be really interesting. Can they get their partners willing to be able to pay for higher growth? And that's advertising revenue for them. And that's been a big also piece of growth on their consumer brands. Like, you got all these eyeballs. Yep. Can we get our partners to pay and to show up better, to and merchandise their inventory better. I think that could also be a huge growth leader for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about like the acquisition of customers going like just plugging into Chase, and now you have all of Chase's network. Like that seemed like they were playing 4D chess. Like they're like, I'm obviously there's a lot of work that goes into like being an integration partner like that, but that whoever started that, you know, those partnerships really saw, I don't know, saw the future, and hopefully they can. Hopefully, there's some resources going into Layla because, as we discussed, I think last episode or the episode before, not so great.
No, don't put resources into Layla. Just use some learnings
No?
from it and build your own would be my take. I mean, Airbnb largely signaled they're doing an organic language search as well through their platform. So I suspect all of them will go that route. It is a better customer experience instead of going and checking boxes, because even sometimes those boxes that I want don't exist. But Jamie brings up a question that I suspect will become a topic more and more for Expedia's earning calls. Are they an infrastructure layer or are they a consumer product? Do they have a storefront or are they a more modern bed bank? I like the push to being more infrastructure layer, but I don't know if that's going to come to a cost of their storefront and their public facing brands.
Is that a question for Expedia?
No, nope, just a statement. I don't know. I don't know the answer. If you guys have an opinion, I'd love you to weigh in.
I don't really think it's going to come at a cost to the store, the like front facing brands. But I think that would be, I don't know, cannibalizing some of that product doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I don't know. Jamie?
I think that consumer is fickle, and having different growth levers, if you can figure out what's going to hit with consumer, awesome. You're going to get higher take rate. If you are powering engine behind someone else that figures it out, great. You're going to get a share of what they book. So they've got multiple different options for driving growth, and it's like having a diversified portfolio. Like right now, Airbnb's entirely on consumer. It is up to them to figure out, can we drive the supply and can we have a site that consumer wants to book on? And they don't have that B2B option. And clearly they could probably build that B2B option for their home inventory. That might be tough, but something they could do. But Expedia and Booking both have those other options of, if some of their partners start taking off and they're the engine behind it, like that's and that's what they've seen. Like Expedia has all these great partners that have been driving this growth for them, and that's led to that growth.
So we saw, I don't know, 2 decades ago, Booking by Priceline or Priceline by Booking, right? And now everything's kind of sunsetted. They still are around, but Booking is the driver of that business. In 5 years or 10 years, do you think the infrastructure layer is going to be driving Expedia, or do you think it's going to be consumer, or some healthy mix of the two?
I think it will be continue to be less and less consumer facing. I think the infrastructure layer, I mean, especially where the LLMs are going, I don't think the consumer layer is going to just disappear entirely, but I think it makes sense where you see a lot of the money going towards that will continue to be a driver. It's one of the biggest levers they have to pull, right? So
I totally agree, but I suspect Jamie might disagree a little bit.
I think it's going to be a healthy mix. Like like I think as a management team, you've got to drive the options there. And I think ultimately you want your consumer brand to be that top of mind spot where people go to book. Like, and that's what's going to drive more partners wanting to be part of your platform, all those things like that. Like, I think consumer brand can be a huge piece of the flywheel.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, before we get to our third and final OTA news of the day, want to give a shout out to our sponsors at Built. They're helping restaurants and hotel F&B teams better understand their guests and create more personalized experiences that drive repeat visits. So if you care about loyalty and guest experience, it's worth checking out. Head to joinbuilt.com/GMH. So in bookings reporting, they flagged Google AI for the first time as potentially becoming an issue, which we had also talked about previously on the show. I think the fact that AI overviews are squeezing SEO is like, that's not a bombshell revelation. That is something that we've kind of been talking about here on the show.
Yeah. If you weren't preparing for SEO to be less and less valuable, this is your wake-up call. There's a noticeable difference at booking.com with their SEO, and Booking survives or has thrived on two core areas: SEO and paid ads. And now SEO is hurting a little bit. They've done all the things that you need to do to be seen. They've got integrations with the LLMs, and they're working with Google's agentic checkout, which is another topic that we aren't going to get into today. But if you're not paying attention to this shift in search, it's time to wake up.
Yeah.
I was interested, Michael, when you're listening to the call, were you surprised when they called out that?
Just to be clear, I did not listen to the call.
that only 1% of nights were coming from the agentic sort of booking platforms, like that to me, like
from the checkout.
From the
right?
checkout, yeah.
Search is much higher, and checkout is downstream of search. Did he acknowledge that search was up a lot?
I think the whole point, though, is that we talk incessantly on this program, and I think everyone talks about it, on how AI is changing search, changing the way people think and book travel. And then you've got the largest booking site in the world driving more incremental bookings across hotels, short-term rentals, everything, than any other site in the world. And it's like, it's 1%. It's not really moving. Like a little bit higher conversion, but it's not meaningfully changing their business yet. Does that surprise you?
Excuse me. I think that until they can figure out the payment part of it, that does. I mean, I'm not like, wow, so surprised. I maybe would think it'd be higher, but I think because the ease of completing the whole transaction is still not there yet. And then once that happens, I think you'll see a huge shift.
They're still pushing them to the website. They're giving them click out links, right? So of course it's not transacting in the LLMs yet. It will. It is only a matter of time. And yes, I am fully convinced of that. And again, it's downstream of search, right? Google has owned search for so long. None of us knows exactly how it's going to play out, but it's going to be a little bit different than what we've seen in the past 2 decades.
Yep. The other question I had for you, Brandy, is from the booking call, and it was clear in that chart where bookings growth for alternative accommodations has been slowing. Like they're at 4%, and they highlighted, and they're not seeing the supply growth that they really wanted yet in the U.S. And it feels like they're losing some of their momentum that they had. Like, how are you seeing it? Like, are you hearing more and more people pushing into booking, or are you guys seeing the volume? Like, and are you seeing any traffic, things like that?
I think that it's still very segmented, urban versus traditional vacation rental, because I mean, at Romy in our last year, booking.com was the biggest channel, like without a question, but we were solidly urban. And then booking isn't even necessarily part of the conversation in some of these markets. Like there are other even more niche OTAs that people are let's get on those first, because we're going to be getting a small percentage, but like it will be coming through there, where I don't know if the booking.com travelers are searching for those kind of homes in those areas. So, and I don't know like if it is like a chicken or the egg component, like the inventory isn't there, so people aren't looking at it.
Right.
And people aren't looking at it, so people are like, well, it's not worth our time. And it's an expensive OTA as well. So I think for like condo product, there's definitely like a push there, but they have not figured out the homes, at least like from what we've seen.
Michael, if you were running Booking, how would you get their homes business? Is it awareness? Is it and they're an advertising machine. Like they just need to go all out on like driving awareness. Like what is missing there?
Well, they own the rest of the world, although Airbnb is chipping away in certain markets, right? I think you continue to double down in what you do well, and you keep trying to grow organically new markets. They've been trying to crack into and dominate the US market for a long time. But to Brandy's point, I would focus all of my spend in the US on markets where my European or global travelers like to go to. And maybe you can grow organically out from there, but it's a challenging conundrum. And for years, their payment structure was just such a hindrance that I think that really hurt their brand with professional managers.
For sure.
And I know a lot of that's been solved, but they have a lot of brand updates. And I think that's part of why we're seeing Glenn Fogel come to Verma this year. First time he's ever come. Glenn has been very outspoken about wanting to grow alternative accommodations in the United States. But this will be the first time he goes to Verma. So now maybe the money's where the mouth is, and let's see. I'm excited for him to go. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I mean, rare keynote speakers at conferences in general, not just at Verma, sometimes they're not as exciting as you would want them to be. But this is one I'm really looking forward to. Well, great discussion. It's always interesting to see what these big players are doing and kind of the downstream effects this is going to have on our listeners, the operators in the business. What is on your agendas this week? Anything exciting or same old, same old?
Well,
Michael, start with you.
School is back in, and it's been a long time. I might have said same old all summer, but I'm excited for it to actually get back to a little bit of that. So school's in full swing. It's still hot as hell here, but I'm ready for the fall. Very much ready.
How about you, Jamie?
I'm going to try to force some fall by going up to the mountains this weekend. Use our short-term rental. Take some friends up there. So yeah, we're gonna head up, cut out early on a Friday afternoon, pick up the kids from school, and head north. But
Summer Fridays.
Yeah, and we're head down product mode right now at work. So it's lots of releases coming out.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, this is my last full week. My only full week that I've had up here when initially the plan was to have a month of it. But getting my last little bits of mountain time in, and then having my biggest group I've ever had up here coming up next weekend. So feeding a lot of people.
There's a theme here. This house is correlated with feeding lots of people.
It is. Yeah, it's kind of the vibe. But thank you to everyone who joined us in the live viewing special, especially to Paul. You're always such a fun commenter. So thank you for keeping the show lively. And thank you to all of our listeners who are listening on the download later on. We appreciate you too. And we will see you all next Monday.